You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Mark Reed and Ted Durden, only on LA Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of The Voice of Reason. My name is Ted Durden, a Southern Democrat.
And my name is Mark Reed, a West Coast Republican.
And together we are The Voice of Reason. For those of you tuning in for the very first time, this is a politically motivated podcast where civil discourse is the order of the day, where Mark and I find that we have more things that unite us than we do that divide us. And having said that, as I always do each week, I'll toss the ball over to Mark.
Well, the first thing I want to let everybody know is I did win the primary, and I move on to the general election on November 3rd. So you will, in the West San Fernando Valley, see me on the ballot. Tonight, Ted, I want to bring up a very concerning issue that took place, and that's called voter suppression. Dean Logan is the county appointed individual that oversees our elections. He was brought down, I believe, from Washington State by Mike Antonovich, and he was driven out of that state because of voter fraud. We have had a lot of allegations here in Los Angeles County of voter fraud. So there was a case brought to the courts by Election Integrity Project California, and Judicial Justice picked it up. And they were able to get and force the County of Los Angeles to remove 1.6 million people from the voter rolls. This had a devastating effect because the LA Times did an article about it as well in regards to the unprecedented amount of candidates that filed their paperwork to run against state assemblies, city councils, state senators, even a few Congress people were bounced off of their ability to compete in these elections because their signatures were not qualified because the people were removed from the rolls. Since the people were removed from the rolls, their petitions to run were denied. I know several people that were rejected. In fact, in the city of Los Angeles, it was an unprecedented amount of individuals, incumbents, that did not have challengers. But it doesn't stop there. The next thing that happened is on election day. You know, I got my sample ballot. My wife and I, we filled it all out. I knew that there was a new electronic system, so we didn't want to wait for the day of the election. We went in it literally a week before the election because these vote centers were opened up. Several of them were opened up. They sent out a list of the vote centers. You can look them up in the booklet. The funny thing is, I didn't get the booklet at my house. I got the booklet of my vote centers at my P.O. box, which is not my registered voter's address. But anyway, so we went in, and I liked the system. I thought it was very easy. It wasn't cumbersome. They had somebody there to help you out, describe it. It was really simple. You know, you made your choices. You printed out your sheet. That only printed out the people that you voted for. You stuck it back in there. It took your vote. You were done. I thought it was wonderful. Now the problem is that Dean Logan cut the resources on election day down to 25% of what it used to be throughout the county of Los Angeles. So let's say theoretically there was 10,000 precinct polling places. He cut it down to 250, or 2,500, excuse me. That's 25%. Not only that, he cut down the volunteers to help out people at these polling places as well. So there was a litany of complaints of people waiting 4 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours. Mm-hmm. The poll worker I'm talking about showed up for work at the poll booth at 5:30 in the morning. She did not leave till 12:30. That was a massive suppression of vote participation. People drove by after work, they look at this line wrapping around the block, and they're like, forget it, I'm going home. In my election, over 60,000 people did not vote in comparison to last cycle. This was a presidential cycle. There was a couple important state initiatives that were on the ballot, measures that were on the ballot that they didn't vote for either. All the down ballot tickets weren't voted on either. People just gave up. They said, forget it. And it was heavy Republican, non-participation, believe it or not, because a lot of the Republicans didn't make it through in areas where they have it. In fact, Eric Early was challenged by a few Democrats, and he spent $450,000 advertising in his campaign, and he got 13% of the vote. In fact, one of the other ones I thought was really hysterical was you had Joe Collins, a very qualified individual, was running against Maxine Waters. He was in command from the Navy. He spent, I believe, was upward of $400,000 on his campaign. He literally got 12.94% of the vote. But the funny part about that is Omar Navarro, who ran against Maxine Waters before,
Right.
he's in jail right now. He's only 94 votes under Joe Collins. Go figure that one out.
Wow.
So there was a massive voter suppression implemented by Dean Logan on two levels, and that is the how would you say, the candidate qualification to get on the ballot, and then actually on election day. The third problem that took place is people that weren't on the ballot, or they couldn't find them, or they didn't have their sample ballot with them, they had to basically reaffirm that they were the voter, and they had to sign it. The bandwidth kept shutting down. So they had to sit there for 10 minutes, sometimes signing that thing, the little tablet, 7, 8 times. And they finally were allowed to vote. This was an unbelievable failure in the voting process in the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, not the county, it's just city, the county of Los Angeles. But this voting system was rolled out, I believe, in upward of 5 or 5+ different counties in the state as a test. You know, we thought, was Iowa, right, that had the
Right,
major
Iowa,
problem.
yeah,
Iowa, the caucuses,
it was
a
Iowa.
major
Right.
screw up out there. Well, I don't know if every county did, but LA County definitely had a major problem.
Well, let me ask you a quick question.
Yes.
What was the basis behind the reduction in the polls? I mean, I could not believe it was a dramatic reduction. Some places used to have 332. They were knocked down to 13.
Exactly. Well, in my district, the 30th Congressional District, there used to be 344 precinct polling places. It was cut down to a handful, maybe 6.
Any idea what logic
I
went
think
into
the
that?
mentality behind it is they opened up certain vote centers 11 days prior to the election, so you could look up one of those that were opened up for the 11 days. I actually stopped by mine because it said it was a polling booth in my area, and it was the exact same polling booth, the precinct polling booth that we had before, except for they said they aren't open all 11 days, that they were only opened up 3 days prior to the election. So I didn't want to come back. I wanted to get my vote process over with, and thank God I did. I'm really happy I did. So we had to actually drive another 15 miles to go find one, and thank God I had the pamphlet. Most people didn't get that booklet showing where all the vote centers were. In fact, somebody at my bank, he said, look, I don't want to go to this one because I've already heard there's massive lines. And I said, well, I have my booklet in the car. So I brought it in. He took a picture of them, of the different ones, and he drove around looking for one. I asked him today, did you vote? And he said, no. He said every single one of them had a massive line. And he just got off work.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would say it was done, that it was Machiavellian, or that it was something that was intended, but it was very, very poorly thought out. Look, it's very simple. Human nature. Go to any bank at 5 minutes to 6 and see how long the line is. We always, historically, humans, we always wait until the last minute. I mean, because I know that they had some centers that were open 24 hours. Wasn't a whole lot of them, but there was a few that were scattered all around. But I could have voted early.
But
Waited.
But again, a 24-hour one, can you imagine going there at 3 o'clock in the morning and a homeless dude that's all whacked out on methamphetamines is going to attack you in your car? Like, how many people are going to do that, honestly?
No, really. And they did not see a whole lot of activity. This whole thing was just very, very poorly thought out. Yeah. Was it very technical and easy? It really and truly was. But I had the same problem. I went to one location. I was standing, I got there, and I'm looking at the line. I'm like, oh, my God. And a woman came out and said, it's going to be about an hour and a half. But look, you go like a mile from here, because this location only has 7 polling booths. Go to another location, there was 40.
Right.
I was in and out of there in less than 30 minutes.
You know, I call it voter suppression because the lines is kind of like going to Disneyland. You know, you wait 3 hours to get into a ride. The ride lasts 40 seconds. It took literally maybe 40 seconds to a minute and a half to do your vote.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
It. It's a very simple process, but the issue is getting to that moment to vote. So most people got fed up and don't want to do it. Now, is that going to suppress the vote in November?
I hope it does not. Oh my God! I hope not.
I hope they get their act together. I think it was a disgusting display of taxpayers' money allocated by the county board of supervisors in suppressing the fundamental civil duty that we have, and that is to vote for our representatives, to vote for our presidential candidate, to vote on ballot initiatives that are on there, statewide or local. And they know, this is what's always been told to me, is that there's a suppression of vote, or if there's ballot measures on there that are not digestible to the citizenry of the state of California, they will do it on off presidential cycles because they know the turnout is less.
Right. Yeah.
So they're more apt to get those ballots passed. So I think there is a certain amount of thought process involved in it, and whether you're wondering if it was on purpose or not. I myself, cynically, I say yes, it was on purpose. I think that they realized, and the reason why I say it was on purpose is because they want to transition the entire state of California voters over to vote by mail.
Well, see, that can be a travesty in of itself because
Absolutely.
of the fact that
I'm against it.
Yeah, so am I, because I think about those people who voted early, that voted for the Cory Bookers, that voted for the Buttigiegs, that voted for Amy Klobuchar, and they dropped out. So what happens to their vote? It doesn't count. It doesn't matter. Has no impact.
It has no impact at all.
And there's no solution for that. There isn't one.
Well, that's why they moved California's primary up to Super Tuesday, is because California wanted to say so.
Oh, of course.
Okay, so they moved it up because by the time it got to California, with a mass, I think it's 400 and some odd delegates.
413.
Right? 413 delegates in the Democratic decision for the Democrat nominees. They wanted to say so in it, so they moved it up. However, even in moving it up, people who voted early, there was people who bailed out, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the Democrat candidates. I think it's a travesty. I think that the federal government, based on the Constitution of the United States, needs to set real rules for the states to implement. Mm-hmm. And I think that it needs to get, within 4 years, everybody needs to re-register, prove that they're a citizen of the United States of America. No questions about it, because that's the Constitution. You have to be a citizen of the United States to vote. You have to be a citizen of the United States in order to hold office. So they can implement that requirement. Right now, not one state has a process in your registration to vote to prove you're a citizen. It's just based on honor code. You check it off. I'm a citizen. That's it. There's no way of checking it. They don't check it. They don't care. Well, so you're a registered voter. Well, during Barack Obama was a community organizer, they proved it. They were able to register Mickey Mouse.
Well, no,
Donald
they did.
Duck.
And I remember when I was, when I was a kid, I remember that when you went to register to vote, you had to bring a birth certificate. You had to bring some evidence that you were actually born in this country.
Yes.
Because, and then you do that one time. Do that one time, and you're good to go. That's all you have to do.
That's all you have to do. But I think the feds need to come in and make the requirements that you have to prove your citizenship in the United States to register to vote. Every state has 4 years to get that process done. Otherwise, you're removed from the rolls. I also believe that they should open up the voting Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and the final day, Tuesday, right, to vote. All absentee ballots are now not issued unless you're out of the state and you request it for that reason alone. You're in the military or you're in a rest home and you physically can't get to the polling booth.
I was going to say, right. There has to be something for that.
But otherwise, it's such an important thing to participate and not half-ass it.
Right.
So if it's a 5-day process prior to the election, then you're covering the aspect of people jumping out of the race and everything else. You can wait to 5 days prior to the election to see who is still there. And on that note, we'll pick it back up again because we're going to pay our bills.
My erstwhile opponent says I don't accept debate invitations. I accept the League of Women Voters invitation.
The League of Women Voters LA chapter was the one who invited him to the 5 debates with the battered women's organization, with a synagogue, 2 churches, and the American Legion. And he turned down them all flat with the League of Women Voters. Welcome back to the Voice of Reason. We were discussing the voter suppression and the election process, and I was talking about how the federal government needs to really, because it's based on the Constitution, all elections, the federal elections of U.S. senators, the congressmen, and the President of the United States are federal elections. Now, the state elections, they have federal mandates and requirements as well. Only citizens can vote.
Yeah.
And that's it. So what do you think about these? What I've proposed?
I mean, there has to be some sort of uniform procedure in place, and
Right.
I think that's what the problem is. There simply isn't one. There simply isn't one. There is no standard. It's all done relatively higgledy-piggledy, and that's what we had yesterday. It was a complete mess. I know a lot of people that did not vote because the lines were too long.
Right.
And then by comparison, you and I spoke to someone before the show that said at their polling place there was almost nobody there.
Right.
Like no one. So it was just a mess.
But that's because we're creatures of habit. We want to go to our old precinct polling spot.
We do.
It's not there. As I stated, I didn't get in my mailbox where I'm registered to vote, I didn't get the polling book where the polling stations were. I got into my P.O. box, which literally has nothing to do with me. It has to do with my business, and that's it.
Right.
And I utilize it for my campaign. But it has nothing to do with my voting, my registration. So how it even got there is shocking to me. And the other part is that in my sample ballot didn't have I don't think it had it. I had the book, so I never checked it. We just looked it up in the book where it was at. But I think that there's an effort in the state of California to suppress the vote. And it's active and it's alive, and I have to say it's by the Democrats.
Yeah, but what would be the benefit in trying to suppress a vote? Because to me, I don't believe that the Democrats are behind it. But I look at it at this point because
they're the ones who are running the show though right now.
No, I understand that. What they would end up doing is potentially hurting themselves though.
No, because it's been proven statistically in the state of California, the lower the turnout. Right, the lower the turnout, the more it benefits Democrats.
Yeah, but see,
Because Republicans we're very impatient people.
yeah, but see, here's the thing. I'll give you Republicans though.
I'm giving you a nugget.
Yeah. Here's my whole thing about Republicans though. You guys turn out to vote.
Not
No.
necessarily.
I'm telling you, Mark. Historically, Republicans are more supportive. No, in California, across the country. That's one thing I'll say about Republicans. They are staunch supporters of their party. Democrats, they can waffle. Republicans, no. They show up in mass. They show up determined to make sure their vote counts, especially in the important races. The Democrats, unfortunately, constituency don't always do that. You guys know. You guys move in lockstep. You move in lockstep.
This is where sometimes you and I will have a difference of opinion. And this is one of them, because I hear this. I hear what you're saying. I absolutely hear what you're saying. And even President Trump will come out and say he admires the Democrats because they move in lockstep. Okay? So, saying that, this is where I won't indulge in blaming and saying Democrats move in lockstep. I won't accept your theory that Republicans move in lockstep, because I got actually chased out of a meeting once because I said the Republican Congress wasn't supporting President Trump. And they went after me hook, tooth, and nail.
Well, see, the thing I love about see, Mark, that's the thing I love about you. That's the thing I love about you, though. You're a maverick in your own right.
I'd say so. I try calling it the way I see it.
Yeah. And that was one of the things I admired a lot about John McCain.
Yeah.
You had your opinion and you stood firm on that.
Yeah.
And I have a great deal of respect for you for that, regardless to what your fellow Republicans may say.
Yeah, because you look at the radio show hosts. I know I can name them, but I'm not going to name them. In the state of California, I've always had an opposition with them, and I've actually called them out on it when I've been a guest on their show on the phone, and they get really pissed. because I've said they're a defeatist. Now, you think that you're billed on this radio show as a conservative talk show radio host, right?
Right.
So why would you come out as a conservative talk show radio host and say Republicans cannot win in the state of California? This particular Republican race, this Republican has no chance to win. I tend to differ. I think everybody's got a chance to win if they have the right message.
Right.
They get out there and do the footwork.
Agreed.
Okay, they're not anal in their judgment on the other party. They actually address the issues that the community is facing.
Right.
But why is it that a leader in the community will come out and say that? That's a defeatist attitude and telling Republicans straight out, your vote doesn't count.
That doesn't make any sense to me, and
Well,
that goes across the board. That goes across the board. You know, I think that's a failure on either side.
Right.
When you discourage your constituency to show up and vote, I mean that's a gunshot to the head. That's a self-inflicted wound. So why would you do that?
Absolutely. But this is what Republicans do. I mean, this is why. When the blue wave hit in 2018, when Orange County, a notorious conservative area.
Oh, yeah.
And there's another stat I'm going to bring up as well. The notorious conservative area of Orange County flipped over to Democrat.
Right, I remember
now, they're
that.
losing a lot of their seats because now they're coming back. The Republicans did not show up in lockstep. They just took it for granted. Well, we're a conservative area. We're going to win. Our Democrat can't win. Then all of a sudden, boom, what happened? They lost every seat.
They sure did.
Except for one.
Yeah.
Every seat. And known commodities. They lost them. Even Katie Hill over in Santa Clarita. Santa Clarita is a known conservative area.
They sure
She
is.
went in there and won it.
Right.
She dumped $5 million, or a hedge fund guy dumped $6 million actually in it. She had another $1.5 million that she raised, and she took the seat because Republicans don't come out and vote. Now, the proof of that is do you think that the average Christian is a Republican or a Democrat?
I would say Republican.
Exactly. Did you know that in the state of California, there's roughly 14 million Christians that are registered to vote? Registered to vote.
Okay.
Do you know how many showed up at the polls in 2018?
How would you be able to tell that, though?
They figure it out based on names. They have ways.
Oh, okay.
algorithms
All right.
and
I was just curious.
That's
You put that
another
out
thing.
there.
No,
Okay.
they know.
Okay. How many?
Well, first of all, there's about 28 million. 14 million are registered. Of the 14 million that are registered, 6.8 million showed up to vote. Over 7 million didn't vote.
So less than 50%.
Less than 50%, but that 50%, that less than 50% is really 25% of the overall Christians in the state of California. So what impact do you think it would have had if all of them, all 28 million, right, were registered? Because it's dominant, the Christians are pretty dominant in California. Whether they're acting or not acting, participating in their faith is a whole other subject matter, but they tend to have conservative, principles.
Right.
Hispanic community, there are a lot of Democrats, but there are a lot of Catholics,
Yeah.
right, in there. But you look at it and you say, if they're voting their values, they would vote conservative.
Right.
They would vote against, abortions. They would vote against same-sex marriages. And actually, Prop 8 did fail because the proponents of against Prop 8 went into the Hispanic and the Black community because either one of those communities believe in the same-sex marriage.
Nope.
And so it was defeated drastically. It was defeated. But then the judges, the activist judges, went ahead and flipped it over. See? So if you look at it and say, okay, those other 7 million that were registered to vote, if they would have turned out, what would have happened? California would be a red state.
It would be a red state.
Red state.
Yeah.
But we don't come out and vote. That's the problem. We've been beaten down to the ground so hard. And this is why, I believe it was in Reagan's era of time was the last time that we had. Prior to that, it was always switching back and forth between Republican and Democrat control in the state of California. After Reagan, in the end of the 80s, not the end of the 80s, into the 70s, I think it was in the governor 73, 74, somewhere in there, 76. I'm trying to remember, too, the dates. But regardless, in the 70s. After that, we lost control of the Senate.
No, that you did. Yes, you did.
We lost control of the Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, it's been Democrat control. So roughly for the last 40 years, California has been in Democrat control.
Well, yeah, in that sense, but you still had a lot of Republican governors, though. You had Pete Wilson.
And how effective was he?
No,
He got ran out, did he? And then we had Arnold come in. Was he really a Republican? Okay.
That was an
disaster.
absolute mess.
But the power in California is found in the Assembly and the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the Assembly and the Senate in the state of California, they have a supermajority. The Republicans they can stay home. They really can't. They don't.
Yeah, they can't.
They can't stop anything.
No, they can't. That's
Zero,
very true.
because the Democrats have a supermajority. So
Mm-hmm.
you're watching things take place now, almost like a dictatorship in the state of California.
Well, it's one party.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what I mean.
a one-party control.
It's one party. It's a one-party state for the most part that has control.
Now you look
right.
at registration in the state of California. The Democrats, I believe, are at about 49% of registration. Republicans are around 22% of registration. The decline to states that have rebelled against the lack of leadership of the Republican Party in the state of California have moved over to decline to state. That's why the Republican Party in California is the minority party.
See, I thought it was closer to about 36% as far as it's really that low.
It's that low. My district lost in the last cycle 4.6% of the Republicans. We're down, way down. I mean, I'm 26% of the vote. I believe it's around 19% now is Republican registration of 30th district. See, so when you come out and say it's lockstep, no, it's not lockstep.
Wow.
It's brutal. And that's where I've said before, and you've heard me say it quite a few times, that I don't agree with the Republican leadership. I don't agree with the Democrat leadership.
Right.
And it's not based on just because you're a Democrat. I don't like the policies. I stand up against the policies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll do the same thing with the Republican Party if I don't like the policies. That's why I don't get along with the Republican Party. They don't get along with me, actually.
Right.
That's why they always criticize John McCain. And I think John was an interesting guy in some of his votes. Everybody went after him about not voting to
Obamacare.
kill out the ACA, the Obamacare, commonly known. And now you look at Mitt Romney doing the same thing with his stupid impeachment thing. He voted yes on one and he voted no on the other charge. And it's like, what are you trying to appease? Let's get the fence post out of your butt. Okay, and either he committed these crimes or he didn't.
Right.
And the case wasn't proven. It was a partisan witch hunt. But on that note, we're going to go to our mid show advertisements to continue paying our bills. We'll see you at the other end. Hi, I want to welcome Rusty Levin and Harry Nabanian, both trial lawyers for workman comp cases. If you're injured on the job, don't hesitate. Contact an attorney. I did when I was wounded or injured on my job, and I thought I would trust my employer, and it didn't work out quite well. So I found Rusty Levin, handled my case like a professional, worked out way better than any other lawyer that I talked to would have worked out. So Rusty, tell us a little bit about your company of Levin and Nabanian Trial Lawyers.
So at our firm at Levin Albania Trial Lawyers, we handle all matters of workers' compensation, personal injury, and employment disputes, wrongful termination matters, and things like that. We were able to help Mr. Reed out with his workers' compensation case. Unfortunately, workers' compensation injury can be very stressful, intense situation. And at Levin Albanian, we try to get you the most benefit we can of the law, while also easing the stress and anxiety that comes along with that situation, and getting you back on your feet. My partner, Mr. Labandian, he handles the personal injury sides, and I'll let him take it from there.
And just like all injured employees out there, anybody else who gets injured as a result of somebody else's negligence has rights, and the rights that they need to protect immediately. And they should do that by calling Levin and Albanian Trial Lawyers and letting us help ease that tension off of you and get you the result you deserve, while also making sure that you get better in the progress. So we're here for you, folks.
Levin and Nabanian Trial Lawyers is the best company for you to get a hold of when you're injured or have a personal injury. So give them a call at
213-232-4848. 213-232-4848. Thank
And
you.
let them handle the stress for you while you recover at home. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Hi, my name is Ted Durden, and I want to take a moment to talk to you about trust, and I trust churchandlaw.com. When it comes to workers' compensation and employment law, you can trust churchandlaw.com. If you ever need legal advice, you can rely on it's churchandlaw.com. Black and white, no gray, churchandlaw.com. 818-230-3110. churchandlaw.com. A law firm you can trust and count on.
Welcome back to the Voice of Reason. We're kind of getting a little fiery in our conversation here about the voter suppression and who did
good.
what. But, you know, the misnomer out there is everybody has been led to believe or think that President Trump got more votes than all of the Democrats collectively. He didn't get it more collectively. Individually, he received more votes than Bernie Sanders. He received more votes than Joe Biden. But collectively, of all the votes, he received 40% of the votes. Now, of all the counties that rolled out this new voting system, who knows how much of the vote was actually suppressed, which I think there was, but it won't be in November, though.
I sincerely hope not. I sincerely hope not.
Yeah, because, you know, I take my civic duty very seriously, so I go out and vote, you know, and I went
so do
early. And so I go out and vote every single time. Even though I know that President Trump was going to be our nominee, it didn't matter. You didn't have to vote for him. He's going to be the nominee regardless. It's only one, and I think two other Republicans, and they're getting like 1% of the vote, and that's about it. So we know it. But there was other down ballot issues that I really wanted to vote on, so I wanted my vote to count. So like I said, I always take my vote very seriously, and I vote. But, you know, the state of California it's an odd duck. It's a very odd duck, I think, with elections. And, you know, as we were saying, I don't think the Republicans or conservatives, even conservative Democrats, they're not lockstep. They don't come out and vote. They really don't. And it's a shame because, you know, you don't do Facebook.
No, I don't.
I wouldn't do Facebook if I wasn't running for office. I have a life. I have other things I want to do. You know,
Right.
I don't care how many times you walked your dog and how many times it pooped on the street and you had to clean it up. I really don't. And Facebook has created, as we know, in conflict resolution, is a place for the average person to get out there and bitch and complain, not go out there and find the solutions and implement the solutions. It is the way in which they let the pressure out of their pressure cooker in their head. They bitch and complain, then they don't show up and vote. This is where we're supposed to show our animosity, is by voting the person out of office that's not taking care of our needs or not taking care of the community. And we say, you know what, you haven't served us. You're out. We're done.
Yeah, I don't know what has happened to American society in general, where there's I don't even want to say, the word isn't complacent. It's really as if
Lethargic as a sloth.
apathetic.
Apathetic.
That's the word I'm
That's the
looking
word-
for.
that's the
Yeah,
word you're looking for.
apathetic.
Yeah, I
They just don't care.
Yep.
They just don't care because for some reason there's this widespread belief that their vote won't make a difference.
Right.
And nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth.
I agree.
And it is, I believe it is everyone's civic duty to go out and vote, to let your voice be heard. And because again, this is the only opportunity other than, you know, political protests and marching and this sort of thing, when once every 2 years on the local level, every 4 years on the federal level, you can express your joy or your dissatisfaction with whomever is holding public office in your district and in our federal government. You can make a difference. And I'm a very firm believer. You probably are too. If you didn't vote, don't complain to me. Don't.
You
because
don't have a right to.
no, because you have an opportunity to at least have your voice heard, to make a statement in some way, shape, or form by voting. And when you don't, I don't want to hear about how bad the economy is. I don't want to hear about how bad the healthcare system is. I don't want to hear anything about what the local laws and rules are, because if you don't get up off your ass and make your voice heard, you have nobody to blame but yourself, because every vote does make a difference.
The average congressional district in the state of California is about 740,000 age eligible not citizens, just people.
People, right,
Just people. Of those, in the average in the state of California, it's about 50% are registered to vote. So you take it 740, that's 370,000.
370,000, right.
And we're a little above average in 30th district. We have 441,000. But how many people came out and vote, Ted? Right now, the count is 100,429.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's less than 1/7.
That's crazy.
Less than 1/7. So now when you look at that and you say less than 1/7 of the age eligible people came out and voted, right? So you win by 50%. So that's 1/14 of the people are telling the other 13/14 of the district what they're going to do and what they're going to accept.
Right.
Are we headed towards major civil unrest? I honestly believe we are.
No, I don't think we're. I don't think we're
I
headed.
didn't say civil war. I said civil unrest, meaning people are getting pissed off.
Yeah, but again, but at the same time, if you don't go to your polling booth and if you don't vote in order to make a change, I'm sorry, you might as well spit in the wind.
Well, yeah, I agree. But, let's say we get this governor is going nuts. He wants to confiscate guns, right? Let's say he goes ahead and implements that. He wants to take everybody's guns away. Do you think that's going to create a major civil unrest?
Oh yeah, on a huge scale.
On a huge scale. Now you're looking at they taxed us 12 cents a gallon on our gas.
And
right?
give me something. Just say something real funny, real quick. Okay.
Okay.
You saw that video of Jackie Lacey's husband?
Yeah.
You're gonna have Gavin Newsom's wife out there waving a gun too when somebody shows up with guns on his front door.
I had a guy ask me, because he was asked this by Black Lives Matter, right? And they asked him, well, do you think that Jackie Lacey's husband should be prosecuted for waving a gun at everybody? And his reply was real simple. Well, that's kind of a ludicrous question to ask. If it was a white dude that came out of his house and was waving a gun at you, would you demand his prosecution? Well, hell yeah. Well, why are you asking this question then? It's illegal to do what he did. Well, no, you can't do that. It's brandishing a gun.
Okay.
Yes, they were at his house in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it's illegal to do that. You cannot brandish a gun for whatever reasons. They weren't breaking into his house. They were on his front lawn. Yes, he's afraid for his life. He should have just sat in his house, and as all of us are required to do, should have sat in his house. He's an actually elected, his wife is an highest elected official. They have security around him. He could have made a phone call and had the police department there in a heartbeat.
Well, let me tell you.
Tell him to get out of there. He didn't need to come out of his house and waving a gun. What if the gun accidentally discharged? And killed somebody.
No, you have a point there, but I'm going to give you a very funny take.
Okay.
On this, okay? Because Black Lives Matter showed up at Jackie's house because of her prosecution of black men, her level of incarceration.
Well, no, they said that the reason why they showed up because she refused to take meetings with them at her office. So they showed up at her house, said, if you're not going to let us come talk to you, we're going to come talk to you.
Right, but you have to understand the reason being is because her level of incarceration of blacks.
Right.
Okay, so that was still the background.
Yeah, that was the crux, the driver.
So here's what I think, and it's just a funny take on it.
All right.
Because she won.
Right.
She won. That might have helped her.
Right.
What her husband did. Right. I'm going to make I'm going to make three salient points.
I think she won because actually I even told people to vote for her because the other two, I believe it was two other candidates.
It was Rachel Rossi and Gascon.
I didn't care for their how would you say philosophy. period. Jackie Lacey, with her flaws or whatever the flaws may or may not be, she was still better of the other two.
So here's what I look at. I look at a gun owner, number one. So he's going to have the support of gun owners, number one. Number two, he's a homeowner. He's a homeowner.
All right.
So what is he doing? He's defending his home. That's exactly what he's doing.
Assaulting his house.
That doesn't matter. It's almost like if I get a bunch of people showing up on my lawn, yelling and screaming. Now you're right. He didn't have to come out there with a gun, but here's a man, here's a husband who says, you know what, this is my home, and I'm going to defend my home against these crazy people sitting out here on my lawn. I don't know what they're going to start doing. I'm not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a stand and let them know, if you get crazy, I do have a gun here, and I will defend my family and defend myself. Now, was what he did politically correct? No, it wasn't. Was it against the law? He didn't shoot the gun off. He was brandishing a weapon. Yes, he was. But again, he never crossed his threshold. He didn't cross that door. He was inside of his home.
He stuck the gun out the door.
No, but he did not step foot outside.
I believe he did.
No, when I saw the video, he was standing in his doorway. He didn't.
We're gonna pick this up after the break.
Okay.
And while we're on break, I'm gonna look it up.
Okay, fair enough. We'll be right back after we pay some bills.
There he goes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Mark and I had a discussion about Jackie Lacey's husband, who actually watching that video. And my point that I was making is he never stepped outside of his home. So he is still inside his home. And in my opinion, what he did would have been the same equivalent if he would have had a big picture glass window standing in his living room, pointing it through that window. He's in his home.
Let me.
And I know I'm parsing it out.
You know I'm a gun owner.
Yeah.
I showed you my little small arsenal.
Right, yeah.
Okay. As a gun owner, a responsible gun owner, we know the laws in the state of California, what we can and can't do. Mm-hmm. What he did was illegal, even though he was in his house and he's, waving the gun outside. You can't brandish a gun. Now, if the people came in the house, he still, because we're not a stand your ground state.
Correct.
They're supposed to escape out the back door. Okay, these are the laws of the state of California. Now, if they were at the back door, they were at the front door, they're at the side doors that he started busting in, he could start shooting.
Well, wait a minute.
Without a problem. But he has to wait for them to come in the house.
But that's okay. So I want to.
So the laws that he broke was brandishing a weapon. Do I agree with the laws? That's another subject. Okay, that's a whole other subject matter. What he did based on California law wasn't legal. Okay, do you think the outcome would have been different if it was a white person?
And when you say outcome, what do you mean? Because nobody got shot.
I know that.
Okay,
but if it was a white person brandishing a gun to Black Lives Matter, showing up on the door, you think that they would be out protesting, demanding the prosecution? Because it was over the top. To me, his actions, as a gun owner, his actions were over the top. It's not legally what he's supposed to do. Mm-hmm. He can step out the door, and quite honestly, I wouldn't even have opened the door. And the reasons why I wouldn't open the door, because you don't know if somebody out there has a gun.
Has a gun, that's very true.
Okay, so you have a 2-inch thick, average inch and 7/8 to 2-inch thick wood door protecting you. You could crack the door open and say, "Get the hell off my property," right? But even then, you got to be able to back up your words. What are you going to back them up with? The only thing legally that he should have done, and him being a husband of one of the top elected officials in the county of Los Angeles, he should have called the police department immediately and said, I've got a major protest going on outside of my house. Get them off now. And they would have been there and immediately. They would have been there and removed them. It was irresponsible. If it was reversed in color, I don't think the outcome would have been the same. I think Black Lives Matter would have been protesting. I don't know what Jackie Lacey would have done. I'm not commenting on that aspect of it. It's what the Black Lives Matter movement would have demanded as a repercussion for the actions. I think it would have been different.
Yeah, I think if Jackie Lacey, let's just say for the sake of argument, if her husband had been a white man, because at that point in time, as my people have a tendency to do, they over sensationalize racism. They would have accused it and would have treated it as a hate racist act is what they would have done.
Well, they would want the headlines.
Well, not just the headlines. They would have asked for Jackie Lacey's resignation,
yes,
and so forth and so on, had it been a white husband.
Right.
I think I'm safe in saying that. I think that I am.
I agree.
And now was his reaction over the top? Maybe a little bit, because I don't think I would have liked to have had a bunch of people sitting out on my front lawn yelling and attacking my wife. But I want to ask you a question though.
That gets into now the actions of the movement, Black Lives Matter.
Right.
I don't think.
But wait. I want to ask you a question though.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So no, you will because and I know I sometimes have a tendency to split the finest of hairs.
Okay.
So the brandishing of a weapon.
Right.
My understanding of the brandishing a weapon misdemeanor has to occur in a public place.
Right.
He wasn't in a public place. He was at home. And I go back to what I said, yes, and why we looked at the video. He never set foot outside, even though the gun may have been outside.
Right.
Okay. Even though the gun might have broken that plane, his body was still in his home. So I don't know, because I would think that if that was the case, I would assume that possibly charges even along those lines might have been filed. You haven't heard a peep, and I think it's because of the fact that his body never crossed the threshold.
I think there's a certain amount of favoritism because of what I'm going to bring up, and that is I absolutely do not agree with any protest being done at the home of any elected official. If you want to protest, go to their office. You want to protest, go to City Hall. You do not protest at their home. That's not fair to that person. It's not fair to the neighborhood, and it's not even fair to your own cause. It's a violent act. It's a threatening act. You know, this is why everybody will justify him coming out brandishing the weapon. That's a threatening act. If I had 100 people show up at my house and they're angry and they're pissed off and they're protesting, they're knocking on my door, I'd probably respond in a nasty way, but that's why I live in a gated property. You've been to my property.
Right, I know, right.
I mean,
right.
I've got gates, and you can't get to my house.
Right.
So it's like my security. If somebody, and I know the law, if somebody actually gets over my fences, I can shoot them on the property. I don't have to wait for them to get in the house.
Right, yeah.
That's breaking and entering already.
Right.
But I have to prove that my life was threatened.
Was in danger.
Okay, is in danger, and that was my only recourse. Okay, so... But there's ways of communicating stuff like that. It doesn't matter. But the issue is legal gun owners know the laws. And you know what? Responsible responses, and I say responsibility is your ability to respond to any given situation in a moral and ethical way. That was not a moral and ethical way.
Oh no, it wasn't. It was pure frustration. That's all it was. That's all it was. That's all it was.
And so that's why I disagree with the action. So I think he should be prosecuted. Probably not. Okay, because I don't agree with Black Lives Matter showing up at their house. That's an invasion of privacy, because when she's not in her office, she's really no longer the DA at the moment. Okay? This is the doxing of LA County sheriffs, of LA policemen, of showing up at their houses to protest. No, that's their home. They're off work now. Okay, that's like one of your clients showing up at your house pissed off because you didn't represent them right. It's like, really, dude? It's like, give me a break. Get the hell out of here. Show up at my office. You got a complaint? Go to my office and we'll discuss it.
Right.
Okay. Showing up at my house, I'm gonna kick your ass. This is garbage. I'm off work.
I hear you.
I'm at home with my wife. I'm at home with my children. Get out of here.
Yeah, but
this is garbage.
Yeah, and I hear you, and really and truly, I would agree with you on that point. But the problem is, it's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope.
It's a very slippery slope.
And the sliding part of the slope is society putting up with the protests of public officials at their houses.
Right. Now, see, I agree with you that nobody has the right to set foot on my lawn.
That's right.
Now, on a public street or on a sidewalk, okay. But to be on my grass, no.
See, this is where we're getting into the exercising of civility between us, between a Republican and a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that civility should extend to any public official in office. You do not have a right, just because you organized a group to protest the behavior of an elected official, to accost them in a restaurant, to accost them on the public streets, to accost them at their home. I don't agree with that. That's uncivilized. It's not proper.
No, it isn't.
We have a right on our First Amendment to protest, to organize and protest in public. So go ahead and protest. Show up at the front of their office building. Protest. Stay there for a month if you want to. I don't care. That's no big deal. But to show up at somebody's home,
I don't
terrorize them at their house, that it's not right. I don't care who it is, and I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat.
No, and I don't agree with that either. Just like
wrong.
when Maxine Waters made that comment about if you see a Republican at a restaurant, get in their face, yell and scream at them. I didn't agree with that either. No. I don't, because if I'm out with my family or if I'm out with my friends, I have the right to have a private life.
Well, it's even like our superstars on the football field or the basketball court,
or actors or actresses.
Actors or actresses.
Right.
You don't have a right, while they're in a restaurant relaxing and eating dinner with their wife, to go up to them, hey man, I love your work. Give me a picture, sign this. And the guy looks at you and he's having a bad day because he just he got thrown out of his house, or his wife's pissed at him or whatever, and he says, kiss my ass, get out of here. You don't have a right to get in an argument with him because of it.
No.
It's like, no, he might be a public figure, but he has a private life.
No, I agree.
Respect and honor that private life. And that's no different with, like I said, any official. Mm-hmm. And Maxine Waters coming out and saying, to accost anybody in the Trump administration.
Right.
She targeted anybody in the Trump administration. You identify, and they started doxing them out, pointing them out. And it's like, no, there's both can agree there's lunatics out there.
Oh yeah, and
to give you an idea, I just had a text message sent to me because I have an R behind my name, and I'll show you the text message. Mm-hmm. It says an R behind your name equates to a rope around your neck.
What?
Yeah, I'm not joking at all. I show it to you. What do you think about it? I've had credible death threats with me.
That's crazy.
Credible death threats.
See, that's crazy.
And so I look at it and say, you got to be joking to me. There you go, right here. Don't say your name. It says, these aren't normal times. That R next to you stands for a rope around your neck.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I put up with running for office. Is this correct?
No.
Is it civil in any particular way? Should I be afraid?
No.
I'm not a cowardly person, so I go out in public regardless. But I've had people on Facebook call for my lynching, literally lynching. I've had them call for my assassination. I've had people send me private messages. LAPD's got them, all these messages. This is why my wife doesn't live in this area. We have a private home somewhere else in Bass Lake.
Right.
Is because these are credible things. I just showed you one right now that was just 2 days ago.
That's crazy.
R associated with me represents a rope around your neck. What is this person trying to say? It was a female. What is she calling out?
Right.
The public, because I've got a few thousand people on Twitter. She's got a few thousand people on Twitter. The followers on my Twitter handle they've got tens of thousands. Is this going to get to some lunatic that's going to show up in my house? God forbid somebody does, they're going to be in a lot of trouble because I'm not your average dude. I'm a little bit of I'm still a cowboy. They're going to have some fun,
You're still an Indian.
We're gonna rodeo. But this is, like I said, the civility that needs to be exercised anymore, and I think people need to get back to that.
They do.
And so when you're a public official, and that's why I disagreed with Lacey's husband coming out and doing that, we're held to a higher standard. Our responses should be really to the letter of the law. It should be equitable, it should be moral and ethical in all possible ways, even if society doesn't have a civil response to our actions. It was fine that the Black Lives Matter showed up to his house in frustration and anger, but he doesn't have to match that. He has resources.
No, and you're right. He did.
Yeah.
He did. I can certainly understand why, but I mean,
I can understand why.
Right,
It's not an excuse to do it.
No, it isn't.
I
It
can
is not.
understand
No,
it
not at
because
all.
I disagree with it.
Right.
And it's no different with the Black Lives Matter movement. They're frustrated. They feel that the blacks in the black communities are unfairly targeted, and quite often they are.
Yeah,
Okay.
and certainly unfairly treated.
Yeah, but blacks within wealthy areas, like you're not unfairly treated in Santa Clarita, are you?
No, that never have
But
been.
if you lived in Compton, you'd be jacked up all the time. But that's where the crime is.
Right.
And so, and that's why I even disagreed with Mike Bloomberg, that when he said that his actions back when he was mayor, he apologized for them. If you went back at that time, massive crime was happening in the boroughs. And so he says, well, if we're going to allocate the resources, we're going to allocate them there. At that time, it was something that was kind of necessary to squash that massive crime that was happening.
Right.
Was it unfair? Was it seemingly unjust? Well, yeah, when we spank our kids, they can say it was unfair and unjust too. Okay? But
Right.
the truth of it is, cops, whether they're black or white, Hispanic, female or male, have a right to be safe and have a right to go home, to their wives and stuff. So at the time, it was probably okay, and he backed off of it later, right? Because it got under control. The crime rate went down. Jackie Lacey and even Kamala Harris for, prosecuting blacks for smoking weed, or having marijuana. I don't agree with that. That's a petty crime.
No, it really is. And the way, and we talked about this when Troy was on, the gentleman was running
Right.
for judge.
He didn't make it, by the way.
I know, and I did vote for him
I
too,
like
because
him.
I like Troy. I really and truly did. About how they would use some of these misdemeanors and hike up what the potential penalties would be, almost to a felony,
Yeah.
to get these guys to plea deal. And again, it was mostly minorities.
See, we're gonna wrap the show up with you can comment on it. I think Jackie Lacey wants to let go all of the individuals who were how would you say, arrested for marijuana charges going back, a while back, and he wants to let them go, just blanket. And I'm against that. I think it always has to be a case by case, because
Absolutely.
remember, when you're prosecuted for a particular crime, you might get prosecuted for a minor thing, but the jacket that follows you, how many other crimes, what crimes are attended to you,
Right.
those need to be taken into account. I don't mind going through it, but I've always said that, look, people who get busted in Los Angeles and even in the state of California, when you finally make it to that big house, you're spending some time in jail or in prison time, a year or over, you most likely earned it in one way or the other. You earned it. And so, but I don't mind under judicial reform, because I'm for judicial reform and prison reforms, is that you take a jacket and you look at the person and you see exactly what's the culmination of crimes that they've done. Now, if you've got an individual that just one little crime,
He needs to be let go.
and they're serving, they've served 3 years, and maybe they got a 5-year sentence because of gang enhancement or whatever, and they're serving it, they're in there for 3. Let the dude go.
Right.
Let him become a participant in society.
Right.
But you have to do it on an individual basis. For her to come out and say we need to release them all without looking at the individual cases is irresponsible.
I think it is. I think it's irresponsible, and I think doing that is a knee-jerk reaction to the protest and the letter writing that she's gotten. And I agree, she should not do that. It should be looked at on a case-by-case basis. If you have someone who has a history of criminal activity, they don't get the same pass as somebody who may be a one-time offender.
Right.
They don't. So, yeah.
Most often, even when we talk to Troy, and we'll go ahead and wrap this up, we talk to Troy, most of the judges out there are very passionate in giving people a second chance. You know, if they have no criminal history, it's kind of they give them probation, or if there's drug charges, they give them drug diversions. They give them an opportunity to prove themselves that they're not going to do something again.
Right.
So on that note, I want to thank everybody for tuning in once again or watching the podcast. And remember, we have a series of podcasts in our archives of really influential, great conversations with people within the community and outside of the community. In our last series of the southern border, the real deal, or southern border, I think was phenomenal.
It was.
And Ted did a great job in his interviews with them, as I attempted to do as well. But our interviewees of Sheriff Mark Lamb, Tim Foley, the owner of Arizona Border Recon, and also Jim Chilton, the owner of a rancher, a fifth generation rancher in Arizona, were fascinating. If you want to really watch something, go to the archive and watch those. They're just recent ones. But on that note, once again, thank you again. Ted, take it home.
All right, and remember that in spite of the debacle from yesterday, hopefully by the time November comes around, it will all be straightened out. Make sure that you go out and vote, because
vote for me.
And when it will really count. No, really, you should vote for this man, because like I said, to me, he's almost cut from the same cloth as John McCain. He's a maverick. He bucks his party when he believes they're going too far afield. So Mark deserves a very serious look. And on that note, be sure to tune in next week, and remember, ignorance prevails when rational minds sit back and do nothing. See you next week. Bye-bye.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Mark Reed and Ted Durden, only on LA Talk Radio.